We're going live. Good. Let's have some fun. Oh, hi, everybody. Welcome to the FiveStack, special FiveStack today. We do have 5 stories that most of you are going to love because you're smart people. That's why you're here. But the number 1 and number 2 story, which really matter, we brought a ringer in, ladies and gentlemen. And I had this young lady on my show a couple of weeks ago, and we had a blast, and it was so nice to talk to her. And I watched her on Piers Morgan eviscerate some moldy old prick the other day, and I'm like, I got to have you back on. We got to get you on the FiveStack with my friend Zev Shalev. Please welcome back to the show, Tara Palmeri. Hi, Tara. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
Yeah, really good. You're doing God's work, by the way. You know, there are so many people that do what you do. Lev is one of them. I'm one of them. But you and Lev are both the gold standard in investigative
Zev.
reporting.
You'll get it right
sorry.
one day. You'll get it right
I
one
get
day.
Lev
It's okay.
once in a while. It's Zev. That's Zev. There's a bunch of Evs in my life. And so, you know, it's incredible because I wanted to get both of you on today to talk about not just Nobody's Girl, but the journey that you've been on with all of these victims. And if people are new to Tara, new to, you know, what your work is, you've been on the Epstein files for the victims before everybody else. You traveled with the victims. You did a 7-part podcast series on the Maxwell family. You've got your own publishing house now. It's called the Red Letter Substack. You host the Tara Palmeri Show. Red Letter on Substack, the Tara Palmeri Show. Broken, Seeking Justice, where you travel with the survivors. You've been in it. Like, you've lived with these people and these victims, these beautiful human beings. You've been advocating for them for some time, and then Nobody's Girl drops. How did you feel when that book finally came out? I've been through it, not to the extent you have, but you traveled with Virginia Giuffre looking for witnesses. You traveled with victims looking for witnesses in your investigative reporting. Why don't we just start there? Your thoughts on the book? I know you've been through it, and I know you've been trying to disseminate it. You've been reading it to people, but your thoughts on Nobody's Girl, just to start.
I think it's incredibly powerful. I like that she goes into the nuance, the complexity, the details. I think you realize that in the details there's so much truth. She's been called a liar, someone that's a crazy woman looking for a payday. And when you actually read the true story of her life, you realize that she was a woman who was constantly being abused, and she went through cycles of abuse starting as a young girl when she says that her father molested her, which is, consistent with what she had told me. And it's very clear that when people go through this sort of abuse from a very young age, including a family friend or father's friend, too, and then she was trafficked again. She was living on the street by the time she was 11. You realize that she was prey for someone like Ghislaine Maxwell. She was an easy target. She was someone who didn't understand boundaries. She didn't know what it was like to be loved purely, like the way a parent should be loving their child. I mean, she wrote that when her mother, suspected that there was something going on between her and her father, that she was beaten up. And it's like, okay, this is someone who has been through the worst perversions in life. And it was easy for Epstein to convince her that he was the protector, that he was the one who loved her. And you can tell from the book that she did have, like, genuinely wanted to take care of him, even if that meant sexually. She saw them as a family in a weird way. Like, her and Ghislaine Maxwell would look for seashells together. They would. She said that she thought that Jeffrey Epstein was molested as a child. I mean, she showed empathy for him. And there were moments when I was with her, we traveled around the country together, and I would hear, she would see a desalinization plant and be like, oh, Jeffrey wanted to do that. Or things would always come back to Jeffrey. And I was like, I see how this is possible. And I think everybody who reads this will see not only a person connected to Jeffrey Epstein, who had a number of powerful friends who she was trafficked to, and the salaciousness of that all, but I think they'll see a profile of a young woman who was truly tormented her entire life. And I hope that it ends these, conspiracy theories that she was killed. She suffered with mental health. And anyone who went through what she went through would. Her brain, they say that trauma like that can change the actual formation of the brain.
Mhm.
And I hope that this story isn't just about Virginia and a salacious, Epstein story, but that it actually saves lives, saves children, saves women who have been through this, and men who can see Virginia's story and realize, okay, like, I feel like I have agency. The book starts with a really beautiful quote. And, as a journalist, I felt this way as well. And I know my friends have. I'm talking to a friend who's putting out a book and a memoir, and it's very personal. And she was really struggling with what she was going to put into the book. And I sent her this text that I found a text from what I found in Virginia's book. And I won't bore everybody, but it is, hold on, I would love to find it really quickly because it means a lot to me, and I think it will help
Take
people
your time.
understand why Virginia wrote this and why it is so important that stories like this are truths. This is how we bond throughout history. Okay, here it is. Life is not a private affair. A story and its lessons are only made useful if shared. And
Mm,
that's why she created Victims Refuse Silence.
mm,
That's why she wrote this book. And so um, I hope that this is shared and told, and this is a bestseller that lives on for decades, and that her pain was not in vain.
mm,
It really is
mm.
striking, isn't it, that she was able to do what she did despite everything that she'd been through. I mean, you think about her father abusing her, and you think about her being taken to Mar-a-Lago by her father, who was also working there, and then
That was a crazy revelation in
and
the
then
book.
also being there with being in Jeffrey Epstein's home with her father. You just wonder what was going on, and
Oh, yeah, he dropped her off. Like,
yeah,
ew, this was so perverse. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but,
no,
like,
please go ahead.
when her father came out and said, like, she may have been murdered, I got angry, and I, like, attacked Pierce Morgan over this
Mhm.
for having him on the show to say that. And I didn't feel like it was my story to tell. I didn't like, that was her decision to talk about her experience, but I was like, "Shame on you for having this man on the show who she hasn't spoken to in decades." And he's spreading lies about her, and her mental health. It was her brother that was there who tried to save her when she took her life in the bathroom. He tried to bring her back to life for 45 minutes until the paramedics came. I spoke with Virginia before she died, and I remember that when we spoke, she did not sound great. And I said to her, "You need to come to the US. You need to see your family. You need," because she was living in isolation and her husband was abusing her and she wasn't around her children. And I heard a woman that was crying out for help, living in Australia on this ranch away from the light in her life. Her children were her light. That was all she had. And so
And
I
her
just,
children were taken away because of the abuse, right? I mean, she'd been accused of something in the abuse. How did that work out that she landed up not having her children?
well, her and Robbie had an incredibly abusive relationship, which is not surprising. So Epstein and Glenn say to her, "We want you to bear our children." Okay.
Mm.
Zorro Ranch, by the way, they saw that as a potential breeding ground for children in the future. This is insane.
Exceptional children too, right? That was Epstein's thing. He wanted to breed exceptional children. Yeah, that was it.
Like, talented, and that was the one thing I do see with so many of these Epstein girls. They had so much promise and talent and beauty and light, and they were just, they saw that and they sucked it out of them, their youth, and so, I she writes in her book that she feared that they would one day molest the child that they made together, and so she was sent off to go find Thai twins and learn how to actually be a masseuse. And that's when she meets Robbie, her husband, and they married within days because he told her the story of his abuse and he was like, "I'll take care of you." And then she falls into the arms of someone else who eventually abuses her. There are court records of domestic abuse. She broke her sternum. A sternum is a really
Man,
hard bone to break. And so the family is really struggling right now because he will get a part of the estate when they believe the children should get all of the estate. And it's just like heartbreak after heartbreak. I am so proud of her, though. I am so
Mm.
proud of her.
mhm.
Like, even in her book, she wrote about what it was like to travel together, and she noted that it was really hard for her. And for me to read that, it made me really sad to hear that it was so hard for her because I knew it was, but she kept pushing. And in her book,
Mhm.
she explains that, like, for so long, no one took her seriously. No one saw her as someone who was telling the truth and trying to corroborate her story. So she pushed herself, even though she felt re traumatized by seeing those people who were in her past, by knocking on those doors, by going to these places from her youth. But she was just so grateful that someone was like, you're a person. I see you, and your story deserves to be told.
Because
And
you
by the
mentioned
way,
in your sorry, go ahead.
sorry, no, I was just saying, and like, and even then, we could only use her as a single source. Like, you know, we couldn't use her as a single source. We had to everything she said, we had to corroborate it. So, like, what I knew was the stories she told me were incredibly devastating, but we couldn't corroborate everything, so we couldn't use it. Like, this was
How difficult has that been for you? I mean, you've traveled with these victims, you've heard names, you've heard stories. Obviously, the breadcrumbs and the threads that Virginia, if you read the book,
yeah,
and if we get these redacted files, you said that recently, and after I went through the book, I'm like, oh my God, she left so many threads for everybody to pull on. Those redacted
right,
files are going to be something. But
right.
for someone like you that has traveled with Virginia, traveled with the victims, gone through this journey, that has advocated for them and has made this a tenet of your professional career. Um, y- how difficult has it been for you to have the knowledge that you have and watch the rhetoric and watch everybody run away from it and pretend that these victims don't exist?
I mean, it's always been horrible to see a story in which it's been fetishized in so many ways. Like, there's the wealth porn of it all. There's the spy porn of it all. Then there's
Mm.
the porn of it all. And then, the survivors are rarely the story. And so I remember when I took on this podcast, the Broken Jeffrey Epstein podcast, it was executive produced with Julie K. Brown, who obviously broke the story again. Adam McKay is an Academy Award winner, and then we used this fact-checking team from the New Yorker, who that did the Weinstein reporting, because we really wanted this to be solid. And it's, of course, like, it was devastating to know so much more than we could report. But at the end of the day, like, I am a journalist, and there have to be boundaries, and I need to make sure that everything that I'm reporting is solid. But yes, it's hard in these cases of sexual assault. It's a he said, she said unless
Mm.
you can get people to cooperate it. And that is why, we went on this journey together, going to the homes of people who could have witnessed the abuse, or at least placed her in the same rooms or places, and that's what we did.
Hmm.
Uh, so, for her, though, she would just take breadcrumbs from anyone, acknowledging her, remembering her, like the houseman placing her there, picking her up, driving her around. I mean, that was sort of like, oh wow, someone's, because you have to understand, for so
Confirming her
long, people like Prince
existence.
Andrew were like, I've never met her before.
Mhm.
All these men,
Yeah.
I've never met her before, and you're like, well, why are you on the flight logs with her then? You know what I'm
And
saying?
some people were also accusing her of
It'd be
being responsible
devastating for her, right?
for
It'd be
her.
devastating for her.
Yeah. What was that? I'm sorry, Zeb. What
I
was
was
that?
just some people were accusing her of being responsible for his death as well. I mean, that's
Yeah.
I mean, in
Yeah.
some ways, she became victimized for his murder, for his suicide murder, whatever it was that happened to him at the end there, by these same wealthy people that had originally abused her.
Yeah, I mean, there was something she was really one of the few victims that really spoke out for so many years, 10 years, and she was dragged through the mud, especially by the Crown, by the British papers, the Crown. They were just like, she's looking for a payday. So I last night I was on Piers Morgan, and the man that was on the show with me, he has spent money to investigate this and to prove that Prince Andrew is in the clear, right? Like, that has been his mission. And I had and
You eviscerated him, by the way. Like, you eviscerated him on that
yeah,
on Piers Morgan last night.
he explained to me his findings. He's also a friend of the Maxwells, by the way,
Mm.
Glenn Maxwell's family. He says he's not a spokesperson for them, but he's a friend of theirs. And at one point he was calling her venal. He was saying that she was a collaborator, a blackmail, that she enjoyed being a prostitute, that she was a teenage prostitute, over and over again. And I said to him, "Listen, I don't know what the laws are in your country, but in our country, she couldn't even go into a nightclub. Here she is at 17 years old at who was it? Naomi Campbell's nightclub. I mean, birthday party in Saint Tropez, which means she was actually on a flight brought over there by two adults, okay, that got her on a plane and brought her internationally, holding onto her passport to another place, okay? And it just begs the question, what is this 17-year-old girl doing with these adults? What good is happening there when they are spending time with someone else's child? And I also I also asked him, okay, you did all of this investigating. Did you ever find out why Prince Andrew was friends with Jeffrey Epstein? He said, no. I was like, well, then why do the investigation? Why? You
Now
know,
we
like,
know now
Well,
that
he does the investigation because he's trying to help his friends. Like that's
oh,
why he does the investigation. That's not a legitimate panel with him on it. Like that's not a legitimate conversation to have because the only reason he's there is to buttress your incredible reporting. The only reason he's there is to obfuscate for the Maxwell family. The only reason he's there is to continue to run interference like everybody else who's lied about the victims, like everybody else who has lied, like everybody else who's tried to like the fact that I watched it last night, the fact that he tried to justify that it was perfectly fine for two adults to take a 17-year-old, and the 17-year-old liked it, by the way. She
yeah,
enjoyed
she
it,
liked
and she was
it.
manipulative. That was another thing he said. I fucking couldn't believe what was
I was
coming
like,
out of
do
his
you
mouth.
spend time with 17-year-old girls? Like, have you ever been around them? But also, this is a period of your life when you should actually be in high school, when you
Mm.
should be learning, when you should, and if you look at that picture of her at Naomi Campbell's birthday, you see adults. And then you see someone who looks very tiny and small and not developed.
Clearly
And
a
that was
child.
yeah, and that's what Jeffrey wanted, and Virginia talked about that a lot. Like, they really restricted the diets of the girls so that they looked young.
Mhm.
And Virginia looked particularly young, even though she was 17 at the time, because they wouldn't let her eat regular food, and she actually fondly remembers the chef for giving her pizza. I'm like, what a creepo for being
Mm.
around. And just like and so, you know, to me, I'm like, I hear teen prostitute, and I'm like, can a teenager be a prostitute? I don't
no,
believe that's a
no,
law in the United
no, you
States.
can't. And we
I
know
don't
now
think
that
so.
the Virginia and anyone else who was under the age of consent was intentionally trafficked to these people because they wanted to capture them in a criminal setting. It wasn't just about having them have sex with someone on camera and capture that for the blackmail. The blackmail entailed having them commit a crime. You know, what they wanted
Right.
to capture was a crime so that they could have real leverage over the people they were blackmailing.
Oh,
Did she
definitely.
did she ever discuss that? Was she ever aware that she was trafficked at a young age in order to incriminate people like Andrew?
Yes. I mean, I don't think she was lost. It wasn't lost on her. I think being young, she didn't quite understand all of it, but she knew that she was flying around to these like high flying places. And it's part of the reason why she didn't know the names of all these senators and all the other people that she, wrote about, and admits that when she was younger, she didn't know all of it. She knew the famous people. She remembered seeing Al Gore on the island. She remembered seeing Bill Clinton. Like, she remembered those names, because she's seen their faces before, just like any 16-year-old or 17-year-old. They're not going to know some random senator from Maine or, the Midwest. But, this is this. I mean, I don't know that she was aware of how sophisticated it was that she was being used as a pawn in some sort of blackmail ring. I think she was, told after she was brutally assaulted by this prime minister that, oh, that can happen sometimes. Sorry, that happens sometimes, but this is your job. This is your job. And yes, she was paid, okay? But that doesn't matter. Like, this is what I don't understand. Like, if you want to pay adult prostitutes, go for it. It's not my cup of tea. Creeps me out, frankly. But that's what some people want to do. And in some countries, that's perfectly legal. And in some states, it's legal. I'm just, when they're children and you think that that's a good idea and you're moving them around and they're 17 or 16 and they should be living with their parents. I mean, she was living in a trailer when he found them with her friend. Like, it wasn't even like she was living with her parents. She was so easy to prey on. It's, oh, that's the dog. Probably
That's
talking
okay.
too
Just
much.
Listen,
yeah.
sorry. I know you have a heart out here, and you need to split. But I just one last question. How are you? Because I think this is a very personal journey that you've been on with so many women, so many people. You have been tireless and dogged, and I think about my psyche covering some of the bullshit that we cover, some of the negativity. You've been in it. Like, how are you today?
I'm a little tired. Thank you for asking. But at the end of the day, I do feel like I'm really proud of Virginia. I really am. This was, I think, if she was alive and she saw the reception of her book, she would be so thrilled. I mean, I still haven't gotten it in the mail, which means that like Amazon, I have a copy obviously, but like that means the Amazon can't deliver orders. I think she would be thrilled. And this was her life's work. Victims Refuse Silence. This book will live on for her. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of corruption in this world. This happens all over the world, and to women that are sex trafficking is a huge problem.
Mhm.
And I hope that this book stops that, and also makes it much more difficult for someone who's a predator to get a pardon when it's made clear the impact of the crime on the survivors. Because as we know, Alex Acosta didn't read their victim statements. Kash Patel didn't read the victim statements. They still have not been called to testify before Congress. So, this is the testimony that these survivors needed right now.
Mm.
And
And
they
hopefully it
are
pushes
the
people.
truth. They are the files. I've been saying that all along. They are the list. They know the lists. If
Mm.
only anyone would ask them. So
Mm.
that's my piece. I'm going to go.
Thanks, Tara. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate your
Thank
time.
you. And Zev, one day we have to
Yeah.
show ourselves about the Maxwells.
Yes, because there's a lot to unpack
Yep.
there. There's a ton. So,
Yeah, we just scratched the surface here, but your work has been incredible. I wanted to highlight it, bring it to our audience, include you in the FiveStack, and just have a chat again because I know you break the ice with certain people in podcasts, and then you're like, oh my God, we need to talk about this, we need to talk about that, and I wanted to get to you because this is the week that Virginia's book came out. It's a heroic read if anybody gets a chance to do it, but the tracks that you've laid in advocating and covering this have just been just heroic. So well done and thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. It's
Thanks,
not about
Tara.
me. It's about her. But thank you guys.
We'll be in
Cheers.
touch. Cheers. Thanks so much.
Talk to
Okay.
you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. It's,
That's just
Tara
great.
Palmeri, the red letter on Substack. She is an absolute warrior. I mean,
Yeah.
is there any other way to say it?
It's so impressive. It's so impressive that she spent the time with all of the victims and she went on that tour, knocking on doors with. That is not easy work for anyone to cover. I mean, that is real, like, putting the legwork into a story and spending time with the victims. That's not fun. And she really got to know them. She's speaking on their behalf right now, and they're all very lucky to have her as a spokesperson as well, as someone who can capture their experiences and relate them so well to everybody. It is so tragic about Virginia Giuffre and the fact that she had to die to get this book sort of noticed, is tragic in itself, but it's not unfitting an otherwise quite tragic life in every way.
Well said. Really, really well said. There's a sensitivity around the subject. I think people want to use Virginia Giuffre in this book as a weapon. I think people want to use the victims as a weapon. And we're just a couple of dudes, right? Both couple 50-year-old guys. It grew up in an era where that era was, if you can cover it up, nothing happened.
Yeah.
We expected that in a professional setting in the media, right? Let's be honest, we did. Stories like this are not uncommon in media, but stories like this never get very far because the people that make these stories, meaning the people that commit the crimes against young women, people that abuse women, people that marginalize women, are men, very, very powerful men that feel like they don't have any governors on anything that they can do because in their mind, their success means merit and merit means they're above the law. And what I got out of the book, and I went through it, and Tara and I were just kind of texting or emailing back and forth about it over the past couple of days, was the systemic failure of the legal system and powerful men in government that made sure that these women continued to suffer. And if you extrapolate that out when it comes to the Epstein files, if you extrapolate that out, the marginalization, the abuse, the sexualization, the objectification of women, which, by the way, Meg is very, very fucking good at, right? Even Trump the other day with this whole thing with Merloni. I don't know if you saw that. He's like, we got a really beautiful Italian prime minister here. She's so hot. So beautiful. And that is what they are all protecting. They're not just protecting their crimes against these children, thousands of them that are now women, that are now ruined, families that are, they're not protecting themselves from that accountability. They are legitimately protecting themselves. This is the whole fucking purpose of Make America Great Again. their ability to continue to do this and continue to cover it up and continue to be perverse, disgusting, women abusing pieces of shit, child abusing pieces of shit. And there are geopolitical assholes out there that know that there are certain people that have this proclivity. And that is what the Epstein files are. They are these women, as Tara said, but they are also, assets for blackmail. They are also muses for sick fucks, right? That's what they are, and it served two purposes. But what I really, truly kind of like clued into after going through Nobody's Girl, and everybody should read it. Everybody should read it. Was the systemic failure, how children and women are assets, political assets, sexual assets. And there's a certain subset, certain group of people, and they seem to all have power, right? They seem to all be very wealthy. They seem to all be in the government. They seem to all be hovering around the fringes of lobby groups and billionaires and banks and Senate and the president and venture capitalist people. So when you think about, there's just this sick group of guys that just love to do sick shit to kids. No. It is so much bigger and so much wider than that, which is why the government sets this stuff up. This is why Alex Acosta gave Epstein the deal in the first place, because it is a tenet. What happened to these girls is a tenet of geopolitical bullshittery. This is allowed. This is a systemic strategy and tactic.
It's
that is
also
used by governments around the world, and elites love it.
And it's enabled by the same business interests. What I'm reporting on lately on Narrative has been about Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan, who's sat there as the helm of this bank who, for 15 years, Jeffrey Epstein used that bank to facilitate the transfer of $1.1 billion in over 4,000 transactions. Now, that is many of which were flagged as being suspicious, as being problematic. People inside the bank kept saying, this is a problem. And Jamie Dimon says he never met the guy, which I don't buy. But let's say he says that everybody, that the whole thing just happened under one executive and that the concerns never rose to his level. But none of the evidence that we've seen actually supports that. So what we've got is someone who's a real titan in business. Jamie Dimon is considered, the absolute hallmark of great bankers in America, who either did one of two things. Either he is incompetent because he didn't notice that his own bank was transferring $1 billion worth of funds for a guy suspected of the sexual misadventures, but that's when we call them crimes, and then also someone who's doing money laundering, or he lied under oath, in order to protect that same person and that same operation. Neither of those are very good looks for Jamie Dimon, and it makes you think that the entire structure that supported Jeffrey Epstein and all the crimes and all the blackmail and all the financial crimes that followed from that, it all seems to be, if you take one of those pieces out and reveal it, and in this case, it could be the Virginia Giuffre story, if you're able to actually expose what happened to Virginia and all the blackmail around her and all the financial crimes that followed that blackmail, boy, you can see that the entire structure would fall apart. And it's what you're talking about, the thing that's been holding up the organized crime, let's call them male, alpha male type people who are sort of these patriarchs of America. That whatever's been holding that up appears
Rich white
to be
dicks.
You could call them that, yeah. That you can feel that it's almost shaking at its foundation, that it's about to collapse, and they've been trying very, very hard to keep it up. And I don't know if it will survive. I don't know if it will stay up, but it is currently under probably its most unbelievable strain that it's ever had. And what we're watching is the Republican Party hiding these Epstein files. And it's not
It's
just
shut down the government so they don't have to deal with it.
It's not just the FBI Epstein files, mind you. There are files inside the U.S. Treasury, all these suspicious activity reports that J.P. Morgan filed or didn't file until a later stage, explaining how they and Deutsche Bank basically facilitated all this operation for 15 years. The Treasury Secretary Bessent is refusing to release those files. Now, why is the Treasury Secretary so afraid of what's in these files? Why is he not sharing them with the media? Why is he not sharing it with the public? What are in those files that is making him so nervous about issuing or releasing them? And of course, we can suspect what that is. We know exactly what's in them, is that there is all sorts of transactions, but even the stuff that we know involve some of the women, involve the transaction with Russian banks and all these other things. But I bet you there's a lot more in there that we haven't been able to quite pin down, that involves an enormous amount of financial crimes that have really left the taxpayer in the United States holding the can on so many different crashes and collapses of the economy that have happened in the last 40 years.
Yeah, and your work in that department has been crazy. It was awesome to have Tara, even though it was only for 20 minutes,
Yeah.
and I felt like it was a really abridged conversation where we could kind of get her thoughts, talk about some of the inside stuff. She mentioned Al Gore was at Epstein Island too, in that. I don't know
Yeah.
if you watched that, and it was incredible seeing so many women come into the conversation today, because this isn't just about corruption. Its roots are in corruption. It's bigger than, which sounds really, heinously pedestrian for me to say that this is bigger than the Epstein files. This is not just about trafficking thousands of young girls and women across the world for the better part of 2 to 3 decades. This is about standing up for women, but this is now also about what is in the system. What is the bug in the system that not only allowed this to happen? Because listen, I'm reminded of the interview with Howard Lutnick where he's on Pod Force One. I don't know if you saw this.
Yeah.
He's on Pod Force One, and they're like, "So you live next to Jeffrey Epstein?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, the guy was so gross." And she's like, "Well, tell me about it." And he's like, "Yeah, we went there, we bought a house, he was here, we were there. It's like 8 steps, we go next door. There's a massage table in the room." He goes, "I get the right kind of massage, you know what I'm saying? My wife kicks me out." We lived next to him for 15 years. Knew exactly what it was back then, 15 years ago. Him and his wife did nothing about it. Jamie Dimon, let's take him as a. How long did he bank with J.P. Morgan Chase and Jamie
15
Dimon?
years. 15 years.
15 years. 15 years. Jamie Dimon pays out hundreds of millions of dollars to the victims and then says he has no idea.
Yeah.
No idea.
What.
Even though the receipts of those financial transactions were all flagged and he made them get pushed through. He was like, yeah, just rubber stamp it. It's going to Jeff. It's going to Jeff. He didn't ask any questions either.
It took
He didn't
6
want to say
years.
anything.
It took 6
The
years.
systemic nature
Yeah.
of this, it cannot be underscored enough.
Mm.
It is a feature in American politics, the abuse of young girls, the abuse of women. And as a white straight man, I can tell you this: when I used to hear these stories as a young white straight man, I wouldn't think of the victims. It sounds absolutely terrible, right? It sounds awful. I wouldn't think about, well, how much of this is going on and who is allowing this. Was this been allowed to perpetrate over a long period of time? And the other thing is, I would look away if the perpetrator was a straight white dude because of my bias.
Yeah.
Because I'm an asshole. I was a young asshole. I was like one of those guys. And now, 25 years later, I think what did we miss? What did we miss? How does this happen? What are we allowing? Why did we not advocate? And it goes back to believe them, right? It goes back to listen to them. And someone like Tara, who spent some time with us today, which was incredible, not only believed them and listened to them, she quit her day job and traveled with them.
Yeah, amazing. I was so glad to ask her about the question about whether Virginia actually realized she was being, being used as a blackmail, as a pawn in a blackmail scheme to try and incriminate people. And I don't think Virginia Giuffre realized that, and I don't think that a lot of the girls that were entrapped in this operation, which had all these facets, which included, intelligence operations involving Russia and Israel, and business interests involving all the biggest, most powerful names in the world. I don't think that they had any idea really what they were involved in to some extent. They were used just solely as pawns in a game to gain power over these individuals so that even other individuals, these corrupt organized criminals, could get wealthier and wealthier and wealthier. They were really discarded as human beings no one thought of them as even having any rights or values or anything like that. They were just used as pawns in a game, and you can really see that in the reaction that Virginia Giuffre and Tara was describing, how she'd knock on doors just looking for validation on just on her existence, on who she might be.
That was a really sad
Yeah.
part about that
Oh,
interview, and sad part about that book is that, part of Tara's last couple of years has been looking for witnesses,
mhm,
but not to the crimes. Yes, to the crimes, but witnesses that could validate the existence of these young
mhm.
girls.
Unbelievable.
And to have these stones for Virginia Giuffre, and there's heroic aspects to her book, just being able to, put that vulnerability into words, as she did with Nobody's Girl, which is fantastic. It's disturbing, it's awful, but it also, you get a glimpse into the strength that she has, the strength that these victims have to go and find out what happened to them, knowing how fucking horrific what happened to them was.
Yeah.
Going to look for justification for their existence. Going to
Unbelievable.
look for justification, and I'll tell you what, straight white men, I'm talking to you now. That book had an indelible, will leave an indelible mark on my soul, and I would encourage every man to read it, especially if you are in the presence of or are lucky enough to have women in your family, whether it be your wife, your children, whatever the situation is, specifically children. Because this was in as much a warning of what to look for because of the abuse, and that was another revelatory part of that book, the abuse that she suffered at the hands of her father from the age of 7 until the age of 11, which made her flee.
Unbelievable. The story of the dad, just
Yeah,
unbelievable.
yeah. I just, it is the theft of innocence from young people, children, should be something that is punishable by death. After reading that book, should be punishable by death 100% of the time. You abuse a child, you steal their innocence, you should be put to death 100% of the fucking time. I don't care who you are.
I'm not going to co-sign that, but I agree with you that they deserve to. Everyone needs to be faced justice. I'm not a fan of the death penalty in general, but I do. But I know you are. We should move on to the rest of the five stack because we've got maybe 15 minutes here, and there are 5 big stories developing that we really should touch on today.
We got let's push it to like 25 minutes, maybe 30. Let's go
All
a
right,
little
okay.
longer today, quarter hour.
So the big story today, really, Trump just elevated 2 prominent election deniers to top positions at the Department of Homeland Security. Now, you remember these names: Heather Honey, the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Election Integrity, and Marcy McCarthy as Director of Public Affairs at CISA. Well, while systemically dismantling the federal government's election security infrastructure ahead of next year's midterms is their number one goal. On a call last month with election officials from nearly 50 states, Honey alarmed participants by echoing right-wing conspiracy theories, complaining that DHS cybersecurity experts had strayed from their mission by combating election misinformation, and repeatedly citing a report used by conspiracists to claim voting machines were rigged. Before her August appointment, Honey told right-wing activists that the administration could declare national emergency, and this is what's worrying everybody. The administration could declare a national emergency based on a reinvestigation of 2020 just to justify dictating new rules to state and local governments without Congress. This is about as clear a plan as we've been able to identify of any, Trump acolyte who's willing to call a national emergency for elections based on a stolen election in 2020, which of course was not stolen, but this is what they're planning to do, if you believe what Heather Honey is telling people.
Heather Honey was the person that went to the state of Pennsylvania with an extra 100,000 signatures, and they told her that she was fucking insane. By the way, I just wanted to bring that up. Like, these are 2 people, much like the Paul Ingrassia nomination for
Yeah.
the head of OSC. 2 people who are cult sycophants. They are mega cult sycophants. They are hardcore religious, hardcore, very Christian nationalist, hardcore assholes for Donald Trump. Now, what Donald Trump is doing is he is seeding ahead of the election every available opportunity, which was why he put Paul Ingrassia and nominated him as the head of OSC. Because what does he do? What does the OSC do? The Office of Special Counsel. Well, they investigate whistleblowers. They investigate crimes of the government. They look into election interference. They look into fraud. They look into foreign interference. They really keep tabs on elected officials. It's what the Office of the Special Counsel does. So he seeded that. Now what he's doing when it comes to the actual election, it's fascinating if not predictive. Is he's taking those same cult, and they are like hardcore MAGA cult suckers, and he's saying, okay, listen, we need to figure out whether or not the people of the United States not only are going to buy that it's too dangerous to hold an election, but when my name's on the ballot, the election's unfair. And so we have to change the rules of engagement. Heather Honey might be one of the worst human beings in the history of politics in the United States as a female. She might be one of those people, because all she has done and she almost got fucking charged for what she did, by the way. All she's done for the past 2 years is complain and continue to talk about the big lie. Well, guess what, folks? Now Heather Honey is in charge of the 2026 midterms. In charge.
And threatening a national emergency, threatening that the Trump administration could actually declare a national emergency, which would give them the rights, they claim, to restate the laws of how elections are run to every state. I mean, this is not how elections work, but if they are actually contemplating something like this, it throws into question, obviously the next election, but it obviously heightens the urgency for something to happen because, our democracy is at grave risk. This is a major 5-alarm fire when you've got people in charge of elections thinking about declaring a national emergency in order to subvert those elections. I mean, it's a whole new level.
Yeah, and he's doing it up front too. That's the thing I love about it, right? Like, he's just like, I'm going to put Heather Honey in charge of elections. Everybody looks into Heather Honey and like, oh, she's an insane fucking MAGA cultist who tried to overturn the election by handing in, a fake envelope with 100,000 extra votes for Donald Trump in Pennsylvania in 2020. That's what she did. Like, folks, it's on. To Zev's point, I mean, with every single ratchet turn, like this is a ratchet turn for fascism, you will see an election denier, a MAGA cultist, a Christian nationalist put in charge of something they are wholly not only underqualified or not qualified at all to actually do, but someone who will do whatever Donald Trump wants them to do.
I mean, what on earth is he going to do next? Tear down the White House? Wait, he's done that. So actually, this is the other thing he's done next. This is the number 4 story was the Epstein story. So number 3 is Trump just pardoned Changpeng Zhao, the Binance founder who pleaded TC. I don't even know how you say it.
CZ. They just call him CZ.
CZ. Okay. The Binance founder who pleaded guilty to violating anti-money laundering laws as part of a deal where his company paid a $4.3 billion fine, one of the largest corporate penalties ever levied. The White House claims Biden's DOJ prosecuted Zhao as part of a war on cryptocurrency, despite there being no allegations of fraud or identifiable victims, which is an interesting way to describe someone who admitted to enabling money laundering on a massive scale, including, by the way, I think ISIS and a bunch of other terror organizations used Binance to finance themselves. This is another Trump crazy bit of news because not only has he pardoned a bunch of people that he shouldn't have pardoned recently, like George Santos and the Nikola founder, Trevor Milton, but he's also obviously benefiting a lot from cryptocurrency because his own kids are in a partnership with Mr. CZ, as you put him, as you call him, in order to benefit from cryptocurrency. They're in business with him. They've been making billions of dollars of this guy. So the quid pro quo here is pretty obvious, no matter what Catherine Levitt wants to tell us. This is obviously a corrupt enterprise. I mean, if you're allowing someone to be, I mean, what else can you call it? This is corruption. This is just corruption at its highest level. The guy's paying billions.
If you know anything about CZ from Binance, who got pinched for like $4.3 billion fine. He actually ended up only paying 50. If you know anything about his deal with Donald Trump, and a lot of those crypto guys made deals, like the BitMEX guys. He pardoned the co-founders of BitMEX. He pardoned the co-founders of Nikola, another company but he fucking pardon Ross Ulbricht from Silk Road. Dude
Yeah.
sold heroin and crack online around the world and fentanyl, for fuck's sake. Like he's the
Yeah.
biggest opium, fentanyl, acid dealer in the world, and a massive crypto. And what he does is this, and it's just a quick note. He'll pardon guys that have lots of money. Like he's getting ready to pardon P. Diddy, by the way. Lots of money. He's still got tons of money. And then it takes away
They
their
denied that, by
agency.
the
They
way.
get
But
well, he will. They take away agency. They give him a lot of money, and then he says, "Now go to work for me and do this dark thing, do that dark thing." Go. He did that with George Santos. I don't know if you saw George Santos this weekend. I'm going to get to CZ in a second and his background and what he actually gave Trump for the pardon, because this is a paid for pardon. But he pardoned George Santos the other day, and everybody's left scratching their head going, "Why?" He hated George Santos. The second he pardoned George Santos gets out of jail and he starts hammering away at Zorhan Mandami. Hammering away at Zorhan Mandami. So that was the purpose of that pardon. It's supposed to do 7 years for defrauding the people of New York out of millions of dollars, lying, fraud, what he cooked to actually get into Congress. It's like one of the great fucking fraudulent stories of all time, and the guy's shameless. And he's like, and I heard this, like I actually heard this from a source, is that they were looking around as how can we throw Zorhan Mandami off his game? And he's like, well, we need a guy. And they're like, well, what kind of guy do we have? And there's literally in a room full of people doing a war room kind of conversation. And they said, well, we got this fat weirdo in jail for 7 years who's shameless. He'll do anything. He'd suck the chrome off a bumper for $500. He did cameo videos for $50, for Christ's sake, after he got fired trying to line his pockets. He'll literally do anything. He'll lie about owning a kennel. He'll lie about saving dogs and steal the money. He'll do whatever. He'll say whatever. He's nuts. And apparently the Trump regime was like, give him a pardon, let him go to work on Mamdani. Nowhere to look.
Unbelievable. I mean, look, I buy it. And it's also very Russian. I mean, this is what Putin does with all the hackers in Russia. They put them in jail and then they say, hey,
And
you
the
can come out.
criminals. Yeah.
You can come out if you help us defraud America by doing this operation or that operation. And a lot of it is crypto based. So, the fact that Trump is now going to be have this guy, CZ, beholden to him to do whatever criminal activity he needs done is not surprising. But this is crazy.
Listen, here's the thing. Like, what's the quid pro quo with CZ? I was going to get to that. Quid pro quo with CZ is really easy. Is you connect me and my World Liberty with an untraceable World Liberty crypto Bitcoin fund, seed it with $75 million for us. Get all your Binance and all your crypto and Bitcoin pals to feed into this thing, and we'll consider giving you a pardon. That's exactly what happened. Who's in charge of World Liberty? Zach Witkoff and Eric Trump, burn victim Trump. Who is the biggest capital raise for World Liberty? Who gave them the most money to get it started?
UAE Sovereign Fund.
Yes, and CZ from Binance. And today, CZ got his fucking pardon. So there's your quid pro quo. Now, what is he going to do? How is he going to be useful to Trump other than giving him money? Because everybody pays. Everybody pays the Godfather. Everybody pays. He is going to go to work making sure that Trump can continue to make untraceable billions. He's going to go to work with his network of other dark money, crypto, Bitcoin guys, making sure that everybody funnels their money back to Donald Trump, because that is the entire purpose of this. And his partners. This is what terrorism runs on. They run on fucking crypto. They run on digital coins. We just had this conversation. We live in a bizarre time. I said this to my mom this morning because I'm about in BC for a wedding, and I said, "There's no handbook for where we are."
No, there isn't.
There just isn't.
What you're saying is so true about the financing, the terror financing. I mean, this is an American president. Keep in mind, this is an American president who's pardoning a guy who allowed the financing of Al-Qaeda, ISIS, the Al-Qassam brigades, and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, all used Binance to fund themselves, to move money around the world, to launder funds. And this guy at Binance refused to put the FinCEN transactions that you meant to do to say, hey, here's an associated, here's a terror group trying to move money around. They didn't file it at Binance. The same thing with ransomware. A lot of the people who have been subject to ransomware claims and the like, people who've had their computers frozen or companies have had their computers frozen, millions of dollars involved there in 24 different cases. Binance failed to report these transactions. And then we've been talking about child sexual abuse. We've been talking about that all day. Well, Binance never reported transactions with websites devoted to selling child sexual abuse materials, including dark scandals, plus the darknet market scams, all this illicit activity, sales, large-scale hacks, account takeovers, all the stuff that happens in the dark. This is what Binance does. And Donald Trump, Mr. Let's Make America Great Again, just let the guy in charge of that walk away with a pardon. I mean, it's there is no handbook. It is
You notice that? You
absolute.
notice that like Donald Trump is doing as much business as he can with as many people tied to terrorist organizations around the world. You notice that Ross Ulbricht, right?
Mhm.
CZ from Binance. I mean, he hasn't closed any doors with any despot, whether it be Z, whether it be whether it be Vladimir Putin. I almost called Vladimir Putin Donald Trump. What a Freudian slip that was. It is fascinating. And let me tell you something. He's also doing business with the cartels. The Sinaloa cartel. I don't know if anybody knows this. The deal he made to bring a whole bunch of Sinaloa cartel families over to the United States ahead of whatever they plan in Mexico. And
Yeah.
that has been in the last 6 months. This man is absolutely mobbed to the tits, as they say.
He is, absolutely. The number 2 story, speaking of the mob, the FBI arrested Portland Trail Blazers head coach Chauncey Billups and
you got it.
Miami head guard Terry Rozier this morning in what director Kash Patel called a historic arrest involving 35 people across 11 states in 2 separate gambling investigations, one involving mob-rigged poker games, the other involving NBA players selling inside information to bettors. Billups and a Hall of Famer and the 2004 NBA Finals MVP, is charged with money laundering and wire fraud conspiracy for participating in rigged poker games run by members of the Bonanno, Gambino, and Genovese crime families, who, by the way, Donald Trump is very associated with. They lured former athletes as face cards to unsuspecting victims to tables rigged with tampered shuffling machines. I guess that just means they're rigged.
Yeah, they had
games.
X-ray machines underneath some of these tables too, by the way.
Wow.
So,
fancy. But it's a big thing. And you'll know why it's a big thing more than I would, because it involves a lot of sports people. Which, I mean, I know
it's huge. It's huge. The NBA opened yesterday, like day one of the NBA season started yesterday, and immediately following the game, they arrested and charged the head coach of the Portland Trail Blazers, Chauncey Billups. Chauncey Billups has been maligned. He's been a coach. He's been a pundit. Like, he's been a sportscaster. He's been a color guy for the NBA on TNT. He's been well traveled. And Chauncey Billups has made tens of millions of dollars, as has Terry Rozier, who is still an active player in the NBA, who got popped for this. The story behind this isn't just about poker tables, though. It's also about throwing games. These guys are involved with 4 major crime families across the United States, as you know, and it is an enormous network. Now, I immediately discount everything when it comes to anything that Kash Patel says, but they're looking for wins at the FBI right now. Like, they're looking for any way they can get high-profile people, make it look like they're protecting America, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And Trump's association with all 4 of these crime families is incredibly visible. Like, everybody knows about it. So,
they ran some similar gambling operation right out of Trump Tower for a long time.
Absolutely. They had these games in Trump Tower. I mean, who do you think helped him get those casinos that he bankrupted in Atlantic City?
Exactly.
All these crime families. You don't have a casino if you're not close with some of these crime families, because they control all of that. Yeah. So when it comes to what these guys were doing, it wasn't just poker games. It was also, this is fucking crazy. They would place games, like they place bet on an under, like how many are you going to score under 8 points today, Terry Rozier, or are the Portland Trail Blazers going to score less than 121 points? And they would make sure that those things happened, right? Where Chauncey Billups, this is the allegation, would prevent certain players from going out so that he could keep the score low, so you could cash a $200,000 bet, and all the people in this network that were betting on an under when everybody had the over would all get paid. But Terry Rozier is even funnier. Damon Jones is also involved in this. He's an assistant coach in the NBA. There are dozens of people in the National Basketball Association that are going to be in trouble. But these are the 2 figureheads, because one's a head coach, one still plays. Terry Rozier would fake an injury if they had him at under 8 points for a game. He'd be like, "I pulled a hammy, coach." Coach is like, "What?" Because, "Yeah, I pulled a hammy. You got to take me out." And he wouldn't go back in the rest of the game.
Wow. I mean, you really are, what has happened to the world? Like,
Oh, this has been happening for a long time.
Yeah, I know this has been happening for a long time, but I mean, the fact that the president of the United States is associated with the same kind of things that these guys are getting arrested for, but he's the president and he gets away with a whole bunch of craziness, but these people get arrested. I don't know. It seems a little weird to me. Number one story is another one. I just can't figure this out. I can't figure out what Putin and Trump are doing right now. Putin calls Trump's new oil sanctions an unfriendly act and warned of a staggering response if Ukraine gets the Tomahawk missiles it's requesting, signaling the Kremlin isn't softening its maximalist war demands despite Trump's pressure for a ceasefire. The sanctions, these are new ones that he announced overnight, target Russia's two largest oil companies, Rosneft and Lukoil, and represent Trump's first major punitive action against Russia after he complained Wednesday that every time I speak with Vladimir, I have a good conversation and then they don't go anywhere. So then he does this thing. He introduces these sanctions. So do the Europeans. For the life of me, I mean, unless he suddenly has transformed into a different person, this is either happening because he's being forced to happen or it's something else. But I don't know why this is happening. Do you?
I've read a couple of articles that talked about how these aren't really sanctions. They sort of protect Russian oil production and development.
Yes,
And
because the Chinese have stopped buying, have reduced their Chinese their orders of Russian oil. It's expected the Indians are going to as well. Look, I'm as puzzled by the story as you are because this is not consistent with anything he's done up until now, which is really help Vladimir Putin in every way he can.
yeah,
Now he seems to have done something that isn't going to help Vladimir Putin. Zelensky looks like he's actually buoyed by the whole thing and thinks this is something we've been wanting to happen all along. Maybe it can actually work in stopping this war. I mean, I don't know what to make of this because, as far as I can see, there's nothing in it for Donald Trump.
I don't either. But what he did is he went after state-run oil companies. So let me they sanctioned Rosneft and Lukoil, Russia's two largest oil companies. They increased pressure to negotiate an end to the war. Trump saying he's unhappy. Sanctions were the first against Russia. By the way, they tariffed and sanctioned a whole bunch of other people they haven't against Russia, which returned to the White. He's since Donald Trump returned to the White House, targeted key revenues from oil sales that financed the Russian war machine. The move against Russia marks the latest swing of the pendulum. The British government has sanctioned both of them last week, and the U.S. just kind of came in this week and did that. But you know what I find interesting, because I can't figure it out either, is Trump said he wasn't going to send Tomahawks. And then all of a sudden he adds these sanctions. Bessent announces these sanctions because obviously Trump doesn't want to piss Putin off, so he has Bessent announce these sanctions and said we're gonna go after their two largest oil companies. Who didn't they sanction? Vladimir Putin.
No, I
Who didn't
get
they
that,
sanction? Any of his oligarchs. In
these
fact,
two.
they've been lifting sanctions. So you can sanction the world all you want. You lifted banking sections. You've lifted sanctions on individual, goons, oligarchs that are just as complicit, and you still haven't sanctioned Vladimir Putin. Like
Look,
none of
the
these things matter.
oil is everything. Oil is everything to Russia. And these two companies are the lifeblood of Russia. If they're sanctioned and if it's stopping China from buying their supply from Russia, and if it's going to stop India from buying their supply, this is a significant thing that can really stall the Russian economy to the point that their war machine will not be able to function. This could really be a start to the end of the war. And it is as surprising as anything that it is being instituted. I don't understand, what they did with the Donald Trump. Did someone steal the real Donald Trump and replace him with a fake Donald Trump? Because what's going on right now is what should be going on. It should have been going on for years now. These oil sanctions should have been in place. Now that it's happening, who knows what's going on? Something very strange is
I
happening
think if
in
we
our foreign
wait
affairs.
48 hours, we'll find out what's going on. Like what normally happens with these things is Donald Trump will come out with some sanctions, some tariffs. That's why they call him Taco Trump, right? Like he'll come out and say something, and then he'll use this as a tactic to get somebody to move. Nobody moves, and then he'll go, yeah, we're going to have a meeting and we're going to talk about it. We'll meet in 2 weeks. We're going to meet in Budapest. 2 weeks over here, 2 weeks over there. We're going to do that. Did it with China recently, where he's like 155% tariffs. Screw you, because China's like, if the U.S. ships are in our ports, we're going to make them pay enormous port fees. And so Trump's like 100% tariffs. Now he's going to meet with Xi next week, and he's really excited. I'm sure everything's going to work out, right? All this harsh language that we continue to see in these threats to sanction, these threats to tariffs, they never really ever amount to anything. And specifically where Russia is involved. And like I said before, these are, yes, Rosneft and Lukoil are the lifeblood of the Russian economy, but unless he takes a hard stance against Putin, which he still hasn't. Dude said he's disappointed. I've been disappointed by Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin has killed hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people, and Vladimir Putin has also kidnapped 20 to 30,000 children, and Vladimir Putin continues to demolish hospitals and kindergartens and schools and infrastructure. Most of Ukraine was in the dark on the weekend. I don't know if anybody knows that. And the best he could do is, I'm going to sanction 2 oil companies. And by the way, I'm disappointed. I'm
Or,
disappointed.
or is it possible that Vladimir Putin has also had enough of the war and wants to find a way out and knows that he needs his economy to stall in order for him to step out of the war as well? Maybe it's sort of self-inflicted thing. What I don't believe is that Trump is just acting on his own volition. Everything he does is done under Putin's directive or suggestion, at least. That's the pattern up until now. So maybe Putin also realizes he's got nowhere to run anymore, and it's time for this war to end. And he needs some pressure applied to him and to the rest of the Russian institutions that are operating in this war. Maybe he's looking for a way out.
I like your wishful thinking.
I'd like to be wishful. I like to end on an up note. Because really, these shows have become like a litany of the most like appalling things you could imagine happening, run one after the other, and it's good to do because I get to hang out with you, and we're always find a way to laugh about the things, but it can get a little much when we're just reading a list of the worst possible events, and this is a good news event. I think this is a good news event finally.
I do too. Hey, listen, you take hope where you can take it. And I just want to quickly shout out before we get out of here and thank everybody for being here. I don't know if you noticed this, but halfway through the show, one Katie Couric showed up to watch this.
I did see Katie. I love Katie Couric. I'm a huge fan of Katie Couric's.
I'm a massive fan of Katie Couric.
I've worked with Katie Couric.
She is lovely in person as she appears to be.
She is incredibly like her personality is on TV, and that is one of the reasons she's such a huge star on TV, is that she's able to be really authentic, and she is. But I gotta say, I was so starstruck this first time I saw her because I was a young executive producer at CBS News, and when she agreed to come on the morning show that I was producing, I was like, oh my God, Katie Couric's coming in today. And I was sweating bullets because she is also a real pro. I mean, she is a total professional. She doesn't suffer fools easily, as no one does in that sector. And she puts you through the ringer right when she meets you, and she did that with me. But this was all during the Palin. Remember, Steve Schmidt would know about this too.
Yeah, that's where you met Schmidt. Yeah.
So, it's all about when I did that interview with Palin, and she's a rock star. I always thought her career was stupidly ended at CBS, but then CBS is known for these kind of ridiculous things. And boy, do I miss someone like Katie Couric in the mornings. Katie was made morning television in a way that very few others have succeeded after her. I mean, sure, there's lots of great anchors in the morning, but there's no Katie. It's no Katie.
No, dude, I'm so happy to hear that. It's funny because sometimes they say never meet your heroes because your hero might be an a-hole. and journalistically, I know, right? And by the way, I have met some of my heroes, and so far only one was an a-hole. But Katie Couric is the gold standard when it comes to broadcasting, in my opinion, right? And just a vanguard for women, and just a vision of strength and professionalism. So, Katie, thank you for joining the show, and thank everybody for coming here today to spend some time with us. And I want to thank Tara Palmeri. Everybody, go and check out Tara Palmeri's Red Letter on Substack. At Tara Palmeri is where you're going to find her. You can also find her, the Tara Palmeri Show, on YouTube. Please give her a follow. There's no one on the planet it does better work when it comes to advocating for these victims. She's been on it for years, and it's why I asked her how she was doing at the end of it, because I can't imagine. I mean, the relief that from that book is probably one thing, but I mean, the work is now beginning again. So please go and support Tara Palmeri, the Red Letter on Substack, Tara Palmeri.
She's great.
She's on Twitter as well. Really grateful she got to spend some time with us. Want to remind everybody, my friend Zev Shalev as well. She. Sorry, I just saw someone.
Okay. It's okay. Lev, Zev, she, he. It doesn't matter.
My friend Zev has the best investigative reporting Substack account. And if you go to narrative.org, you will get context and the feels for why we are where we are, like you don't even know. Like nobody's to steal a phrase from Donald Trump, like nobody's ever seen before. Zev Shalev, he goes deeper and darker and wider than most. What do you have, and what is your latest over narrative?
Well, that's very nice of you to say. Thank you. I mean, as I said, I was talking about Jamie Dimon today. I sort of put a second story out about, what exactly did J.P. Morgan and Deutsche Bank know? And the reason why I'm pushing this is just because these banks, they knew what was going on. They're part of the structure that has created a world of corruption. The thing about Jeffrey Epstein, I keep harping on this. It's not about the girls only. They were just the victims of this much larger operation, which corrupted our entire system, has stolen our democracy, has stolen our American dreams, and has brought us to the point where we might lose our democracy. So I'm writing a lot about that. And there's a lot of other stuff I'm doing that I can't even honestly remember right now because there is so much at play. And everyone should check out deanblundell.substack.com. It's where we get a lot of the news for the Five Stack every day because it is so thorough and always an incredible read. What do you have on the Five Stack?
Listen, Mark Carney held a press conference, surprise press conference yesterday, and we're going to talk about it tomorrow, but I put up a pretty definitive piece on it. I don't know if anybody saw it, but Mark Carney called a press conference literally in the middle of negotiating with the United States of America. The same day, a little story comes out, which you can also read at deanblundell.substack.com, about us possibly having sectoral deals, meaning deals, tariff deals, but in different industries and sectors, meaning steel and aluminum, because we're not going to get anything done with these guys. And so if we can get relief in one area, great. So, and Mark Carney's waited this out because Donald Trump is the guy that's been going, hey, let's get a deal done. Let's get a deal done. And Mark Carney's like, let's just do a deal here and see how the rest goes. So nimble, smart, cool. Well, 24 hours later, Mark Carney calls a press conference, like a shockingly surprising press conference, where he effectively said, I need everybody to know something. It's over. Like it's really over. And insinuated that Canada had tried, but we have an unreliable partner. And now, because we do so much trade with the United States, it has become a vulnerability due to the president of the United States, not in so many words, and what America is trying to accomplish. Part of that announcement, and I need everybody to stay with me just for a second, part of that announcement is a result of, believe it or not, the encroachment of Russia and America, that friendship getting closer and closer and closer. The proposed Trump-Putin tunnel, the friendship these two have, the intel that Canada has on the relationship, and the intention of the relationship between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, and where Canada stands in regards to possibly becoming a proxy state, that and Greenland as well. So yesterday's announcement was the culmination of fits and starts, but it was also, if you read between the lines, and the press conference was very thick. It was about the military, that war is not war, but encroachment is coming to our shores. We need to shore up our military, and we are the relationship that we had, the desire for that close economic relationship, the ongoing relationship with the United States and the way that it used to be is now over. And if you missed it yesterday, I need you to go to my Substack and check it out. Share it with as many people as you can, because if you read those tea leaves, something happened. And that something that happened is bad faith negotiating, and the fact that Canada is now firmly under the understanding that there is an intention to remove us from our sovereignty. There's an intention to take our natural resources. There is an intention to change the border. There is that intention. So I want everybody to go read that today if you can. Subscribe, free or paid, doesn't matter to us, just as long as you share this content. Paid keeps us in the game. I've still got 50% off for the rest of the month. So if you could be so kind, I'd appreciate it. If you can't, you just can't do it. But you want full access, you want to be in these chats, you want all the exclusive content, send me a DM. I'll do the best that I can to make sure that you get one. But more importantly, share, subscribe in any way, shape, or form to this kind of content as we continue to turn the resistance into a bit of a movement, and keep you informed about the encroachment of fascism in the United States. But not just that. I mean, this is a full move. Like, this is happening all around the world. It's happening in Asia, it's happening in Europe, it's happening in the Americas. So make sure we stay together, stay informed, subscribe, share, do whatever you can do. And once again, thank you so much, everybody, for listening and watching us today. Not every day do you get to see a couple middle-aged snacks sneak in, have a little conversation, then beat it for the rest of the day. So thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate it, everybody.
That's awesome, Dean. I'm so glad you got that story up, and I didn't even know about it. So thank you for sharing that. And I'll be reading that at deanblundell.subsite.
So good. There's some video there. You'll go, Carney said what?
All right. I'm going there right now. Cheers, everybody. Have a great day. Cheers, Dean.
Bye, guys.